Hello there, tribe. How are we all doing? So, apologies first and foremost for the crappy camera, but this camera over here has given up the ghost and decided to die. It's about 5 years old, and for some reason it's just starting having issues last weekend, so I need to buy a new camera. But there's news out and I need to get it to you, and you need to see my ugly face in order for me to convey the bloody news. So I'm sorry about that. If anybody wants to help me out getting a new camera, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg, please do so. Really appreciate that. Anyway, we are having a little bit of an update on what's going on with Relic Delta, in particular as it pertains to why CG has decided that this is going to be the thing that they want to do for the game. And I haven't read through this, so we're going to read through this together as a team, as a unit. Okay, we're going to read through it together. Well, it looks like there is a whole lot of stuff. There's about 8 pages of this stuff, guys. 8 pages. So we're going to try and go through this together. Heads up, it's pretty long. There's a lot to unpack, both foundationally and topically. Okay, games with progression fall into 2 main categories. Horizontal progression as a primary vector. Power does not increase. Rather, over time, you gain additional tools in your tool belt to solve the same sorts of problems at similar power levels. So, like kits, I guess. You know, a Galactic Legend is more powerful than a Marquee. Vertical progression. As a primary vector, power increases with new releases. This doesn't have a rapid increase, and the team has done an excellent job of taking measured and calculated steps when it comes to power increases. This power increase can come from new equipment, stats, and kits, abilities, new systems. Gotcha. Extra relic levels. Relic Delta. Okay, fine. Both types of games need new content, at least in the context of a live service game. They have different constraints and objectives on this new content, but they need both. Vertical progression games generally need new content at a higher power that players transition to and transition away from older content. So, you know, like the different versions of TB we had, basically. Hoth is a piece of cake, right? GOTB came next, now we got Rote, all different levels of difficulty. We see this in Galaxy of Heroes because it is, of course, a primarily vertical progression game with some horizontal progression elements. Your account gets stronger over time as a result of getting stronger characters, increasing gear and relic levels, acquiring new, refining better mods, and you rightfully want to engage with new content, which most of the time needs to be higher power levels to absorb, showcase, and reward the players. Please note, this doesn't mean we're suddenly going to leap forward multiple relic levels. We want to introduce new relic levels over time. Okay, I've been saying it for ages now, I think Relic 10 is imminent. But we also want to bring players along at the same pace and catch players up to make sure all players are able to engage and enjoy new content. The problem with scalability. Okay, fine. In system design, we try to make systems as scalable as possible. If you can build your systems in a way that adapts or accounts for changes in the game that you don't yet know are coming, you've built a robust and scalable system. If you build a bunch of features that aren't scalable, at some point you'll have to spend your time updating older things rather than building new cool stuff for players to enjoy. That is to say, we shouldn't or don't update older systems. Just look at GAC, out of Grand Arena, Raids 2.0, Ships 2.0, etc, etc. Even scalable systems sometimes need updates. But the more you can build your game to have scalable systems, the easier it is to maintain, to make more fun stuff for the players. 6 years ago, we transitioned from gear to relics as the primary progression system for characters. Relics were added because adding new gear tiers was a massive undertaking. New pieces with a variety of stats had to be designed that somehow benefited the entire roster roughly equally, using different combinations, despite kits wanting to focus on varying stats. The balance work was even worse, needing to account for multiple possible combinations of these buckets of stats for each characters, and the roster has only grown since then. Yeah, so it's making it more and more complex to make that scalability a thing, right? Because kits are very, very different, and the game is just so much bigger, 300 characters, right? The reason for Relic's entire existence is to solve the scalability problem of the gear system. However, Relics haven't seen a new level of progression in 4 years. Don't we know it? This is due to 2 aspects. There was nothing to absorb, showcase, and reward the player to increase. So basically, well, if you look at it, everything has got a hard cap of R9, right? Rote stops at R9, all the assault battles stop at R9. What's the point in R10 if we can't do anything with it, right? There's no point just making Rote obsolete by having R10 be so powerful that we can't do anything with it. New content usually isn't cheap and it's never free, so we often have to make difficult choices about what gets built. It's bad to introduce a new level of progression without the content to absorb it, since there is no reason to invest in or use the new level of progression. It's bad to introduce new levels of content without the increased progression to enter and take it on, because, well, you can't enter it and yeah, so they're in a bit of a catch-22. Like, we don't want to give you Relic 10 because you can't use it anyway. We don't want to introduce anything that needs Relic 10 because you won't be able to do it. The core problem is that relics don't have a scalable system component promoting and rewarding the investment. What eventually happens to a live service vertical progression game that stops releasing vertical progression? What happens to any live service game when the core gameplay loop is removed? It dies. There are two operational reasons to invest: the stats given on each individual level and content entry requirements, but at some point the stats have diminishing returns and the requirement can't update as players' rosters evolve. Players invest in unlock entry requirements for content they want to engage with, but the higher the relic level, the scarcer the materials and the less likely players are to invest in those resources. R9 goals, R9 requirements for Galactic Legends, for new ships, all this sort of stuff, they're probably seeing not as much engagement as they want because it's too hard to acquire those materials by their own design, right? We've heard from the community that players don't think R9 is worth investing outside requirements, GLs and the occasional tank. Yes. R9 still loses to R5 just like R8 does, pretty much. R9 doesn't make battles in the early phases of TB meaningfully faster. Nope. I mean, P1 is really quick for me now, because my guild just sims it. We just deploy and we get the 3 stars, but not everybody is in a 740 million GP guild. R9 doesn't make Assault Battle Challenge tiers or Proving Grounds or other events much easier. It comes up short in both PvE and PvP content, both solo and group content. Fair enough. Okay, so I'm still wondering where we get to the point why we haven't just balanced the stats. I'm sure it's coming. You could say, just make the stats on R9 bigger. Okay, so it's the next thing. And we'll address that possible approach in just a bit, but the short response is a series of questions. What does that mean for Relic 10? What does the impact on Relic 10 mean for Relic 11? Higher Relic levels in the future? How will this be sustainable for multiple future levels of progression? How does an increase in stats on R9 help players below R9? That's true. We have to look at long-term future of relics, not just the levels that players currently own. In the end, the problem is far bigger than protect higher relic investment, which is as much as we revealed to the testers initially. Yes, that is part of the problem, but it's not the whole problem. We need to facilitate all players having a systemic and scalable, game-wide reason to pursue upward progression. What are the possible solutions? We've seen some suggestions from the community on other ways to solve this core problem, albeit without knowing what the problem was. Now the problem is revealed, let's look at why these options weren't chosen. Do nothing. The game stays at R9. Players eventually have enough resources to take their entire rosters to Relic 9. I mean, that's already happened for a number of cases. Massive, huge whales. You know, guys dropping thousands upon thousands of dollars. There are a few players with full R9 rosters. Not many, of course, not many, but they do exist. Most people are not getting close. There is no new level of progression, no new challenging content that players can strive to overcome. As players don't have upward progression to pursue in a primary vertically progression game, there is no longer a reason to engage with the core gameplay loop of play to get rewards, to invest, to get stronger, to play. Yes, it makes sense. You do need to... I've said this quite a bit on my Discord, but you do need to have a certain amount of bottleneck in order to encourage people to do it. If something is powerful but not rare, eventually quickly you get to the point that everybody has Relic 9, and then the gameplay loop is boring. It's like, if everybody's got exactly the same roster, it's not fun. So R9 should be rewarding in terms of it feels good to do, but it shouldn't be so easy that we can just start R9ing everything. Okay, so let's go on. Rewards don't matter and there's nowhere to invest. Yeah, the core of the game ceases to function, the player experience is ruined. Change relic stats on existing relic levels. R9 is updated to add an additional 50 mastery and 100 speed. Oh god no. Do you want Ezra dodging every single attack and going a third as often? The value that players receive from their prior investment, upcoming relic investment goal changes. Some characters probably come out as winners, but many would certainly be losers. Different characters are impacting to different degrees, which resulted in a fractured solution rather than a solidified one. I've said pretty much all of this on my streams when people have asked. I don't think that changing the stats changes things. You'd have characters like Ezra Bridger dodging all the time. You would have characters like tanks becoming very, very tanky. But then you would have other characters like accuracy primary characters with some damage that do marginally more damage and very little other benefit. It doesn't make them perform any better. And it makes some characters absolutely horrendous. I'm looking at you, Ezra Bridger Exile. The meta still shifts, potentially drastically, especially if mastery constituent stats are touched. Relic levels beyond R9 aren't directly supported, and this doesn't address the core problem of scalability. Introduce Relic 10. Yeah, this doesn't fix anything below Relic 10, right? R10 exists with no new content to support it. With R9 being difficult to acquire, many wouldn't have any R10 characters. The top end would invest as much as necessary for new requirements and also updating GL teams, and then R10 would be in the exact same state as R9. It plays into and exacerbates the existing problem rather than solving it. It's a fair shout. I still think R10 can come, but I think it has to go hand in hand with this system, and I wouldn't be surprised, I've said this many times, if R10 comes shortly after Relic Delta. Add the damage increase/decrease at the top few relic levels. Example, R7 deals 10% more damage to and receives 10% damage less from R6 and below. Yeah, okay, so just start Relic Delta at R7. R9 deals 30% more. Yeah. Okay, so what does it say about that result? This is honestly the closest these possible solutions came to solving the problem before Relic Delta was chosen. Unfortunately, this does not help players below Relic 7. It even creates a bit of a wall at Relic 7, wherever the value is introduced. Additionally, it would need to be removed and shifted up as new relic levels were introduced, since increasing by 10 to 40% and beyond isn't scalable. Eventually, a single relic level is unbeatable by any relic level below it. Isn't that the case in the Relic Delta though? And removing the value from players' investment feels terrible. Sometimes it has to be done for the greater good of the game's health, but it's never something we relish doing, and we avoid it whenever possible. Okay. The chosen solution, Relic Delta. It was conceived about a year ago. Wow, they've been working on this for a year. The basis of an inspiration for this system actually comes from within our own game, so they're saying it's not from Marvel Strike Force. 10 years ago, the game launched with the level Delta system, whereby attacks would experience modified crit chance, accuracy evasion, damage, and resist chance based on the difference between attackers' and defenders' character levels. Did it? I had no idea. Only crit chance and resist chance have any values, so only those two are ever in play. Recognizing that most vertical progression live service games have some kind of delta system to facilitate conquering old content and not pushing too far ahead of higher level content, we decided to update Relics to use a similar system. A level delta system is used so broadly because it is incredibly scalable. While players are leveling and working towards max progression, the delta sticks with them and applies equally to their experiences regardless of where they are at the progression curve. If progression levels are increased, the system accounts for that by automatically applying equally as players work towards the new cap, without requiring bandwidth from the developers to balance and maintain bespoke bonuses. For all players at all relic levels, it speeds up and/or simplifies older content, protects newer content and investments made to engage with that content, and it supports a distinction in a lower power level of PvP. It rewards those who have made the climb. They're trying to reward people who invest and, level up their roster. I get that, without completely having to rebalance the entire existing game of Rise of the Empire, that sort of thing. I understand that. And they're trying to simplify older content, which I guess is a short-term issue. It rewards those who have made the climb. It promises your investment of time and resources will be rewarded. We chose Relic Delta to only apply to damage because we wanted the stats on the relic levels themselves to still matter. Individual relic levels should still be able to express varied stats based on what the meta needs at the time that the relic level is introduced. We've heard some concerns around relic data eliminating strategy. Yes, mods, counters and theory crafting, but we aren't seeing a complete elimination of strategy during either initial testing or the current playtest. This is outside the video I put out earlier today where the Delta was implemented incorrectly. We fully intend for strategy to continue to be a central aspect of both PvP and PvE content. Yes, Relic Delta eliminates some cases, Gear 12 Malicos beating a Relic 8 Ray, but it also introduced some strategy around which characters to invest in and by how much based on your usage of them and their place in the larger meta. Okay, but what is that cutoff point that CG wants it to be? Do they want it to be 5 relic levels? Like at the 5 relic delta level, you don't want that counter to work? Because that's a little bit different of Gear 12 punching up at R8 than Relic 4 punching up against Relic 9. It's a little bit different. We are aware there have been other similar games with what seems to be the same concept on the surface, but there are two critical differences that make this more favourable for free-to-play and folks who have invested in Galaxy of Heroes. The system is a gradual curve rather than a massive boost at just one level of difference. The system has a single progression path, Relics, which are becoming more accessible in the same release. So we're getting more Relic levels. They said this before, that we will get more Relic levels, or more access to Relic levels when Relic Delta is coming at some point, but they didn't say at release, so that's good. It'd be nice if they do it a little bit ahead of time, give people a little bit more juice to work with before it comes in, rather than requiring investment in multiple disparate systems that have differing rates of accessibility. Variations, the alternative versions. There are some alternative executions to Relic Delta that we considered, some of which we've seen suggested by players, similar to above. I wanted to briefly cover why we didn't go these routes. Kick in later. Relic Delta doesn't take effect until R7 or R9. Lower relics are ineffective. Introduces inconsistency in how the system is applied. Messaging for a system that suddenly turns on after you've crossed a threshold is difficult. So everybody has to be aware, basically. Oh, by the way, you've hit Relic 7, all of a sudden there's this new thing called Relic Delta. Make sure you always remember that for your Relic 7, 8, and 9 characters, this is always going to be a part of the gameplay progression. And that sounds like it's obvious, right? But trust me, as a guy that works for a large company, where messaging has to be completely implicit at all times, people forget. People are not aware, and a lot of people are not on the forums, don't go into Discord. In fact, the majority of the player base is completely unaware that Relic Delta is a thing. We get hundreds of thousands of players playing this game, and most of them are not watching my videos, or even Arnold's for that matter. Okay, so yeah, messaging is important. How do you say R9 has Relic Delta active and not have it apply to R3 when they're battling each other? Yeah, that's true. To be fair, why should R7 be punished for facing R9 if R3 isn't? That doesn't make any sense, does it? The delta implies two different values. It requires the context of the other side, at which point the lower relics is inherently involved in the system affected by it. Why shouldn't lower invested units also benefit from having higher relics than the units below them, whether PvE or PvP? When adding a new relic level, should the threshold move up or stay the same? If it stays the same, eventually all relevant relic levels are affected anyway. Only increase damage, don't decrease it. And this is something that I brought up. I told them basically either half the damage that you're decreasing or just remove it completely, because it's absurd. And that was back when they had the 95% damage reduction. The higher the relic character deals more damage to the lower relic character, but the lower relic character deals normal damage to the higher relic character. This helps address the problem, but doesn't protect the higher relic character. Think of a glass cannon build in an action RPG. It can add more damage, allowing you to kill things faster, but you still die to that one ground effect you step in. You're susceptible to the same things, you just get more efficient in between dying to the same stuff. Not a holistic enough of an impact. Okay, I suppose it's fair. I mean, I don't mind so much because they've reduced the damage reduction now to a point where you are actually still able to compete. We don't want to have timeouts is the big thing. Use the average relic level of the team or the lowest level. Both of these approaches have unintended effects with undersized squads. If an R9 slacker gets weaker because the player brings in an R5 Hux, it feels bad to use Hux even though he synergizes well with slacker. It negatively impacts a player who brings in weaker units, dropping the entire squad down rather than just one character being affected. There is also a lot of gamification and cheesing of the system that can be done if the average is used. I suppose. If you just had Slacker and Darkside Vision Ray at Relic 9, the rest are R5, you just wouldn't take in the rest. And you're like, my average is now Relic 9, not 7. Right. Where does this leave us for the future? We've heard concerns about splitting focus between increasing relics on older characters to account for the delta, while still wanting to pursue newer characters. With our upcoming release, we'll be changing how players get and invest in new characters. Changing a marquee? Is the marquee system going away? More details to come on that later, but the relevant portion for Relic Delta is this. You will be progressing through gear tiers and lower relic levels without needing to use gear or relic materials, which frees up resources to be spent on older characters. Progress through gear tiers and lower relic levels without needing to use gear or relic materials. A marquee is just going to come as standard at Relic 1. Is that what they're saying? Additionally, both droid brains and higher level signal data will be added as outputs from the scavenger. Good. That's a huge benefit, giving players an alternative means of acquiring those materials. With these changes, Relic 10 is being added to the game. I knew it. I told you. Relic 10 is coming, though please see above as to why it doesn't solve the core problem. It will use a new signal data, which will not be farmed with energy. So it doesn't disrupt current signal data farming. Instead, the new signal data will be available from the scavenger and in other game modes. Error battles? I hope not. That's interesting. Okay. Finally, there'll be a new game mode, new events, and an updated error-related journey guide event, ensuring that all players get new characters right away for valuable rewards. We want all players to enjoy the latest characters and content coming to the game. That's huge, guys. That's absolutely huge. Love new game modes, love new events, absolutely love all this. New signal data, Relic 10. This is good stuff. This is like, shows long-term health for the game. We want all players to enjoy the latest characters. We hope this context helps around our choices for Delta. We are passionate about the game and we care about you, our players. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback. Okay, so let's be candid real quick. Oh crap. Stupid camera. 1 second. Actually, I can just go here. So let's be candid real quick over here. I'm sorry about the phone camera, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, my camera broke. I'm going to have to go and credit card a new one. What am I saying? Relic 10 coming to the game, huge. New game modes coming to the game, huge. Whatever they're doing with the new character releases to give us gear, potentially even relic levels to brand new marquee characters right off the gate is incredible. Love that. Obviously, it doesn't help old farms, but this means you don't have to worry about gearing new characters. I don't want to talk too much about that until we know what that is. As soon as I know, I'll let you guys know. So yes, I understand now a little bit. I'm a little bit clearer about why we're doing it. And it gives me a little hope that there's still more progression coming and they're answering a couple of things. There's still a little bit of iffiness around Conquest, I feel. How Relic Delta is going to negatively impact that. Sure, the Relic level is going down to 5, but is that going to make it difficult to get debuff and buffs feats if we're like at Relic 8, Relic 9? And then future R10, right? R10 coming afterwards. So is it going to get even worse? Are we going to have Sector 6 on Conquest? Like, what? You know, I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions still. There's some cool stuff. I don't know. I'm still not particularly happy about it. But I'm now excited about new stuff coming to the game. I always like new stuff. I want to hear your thoughts though, guys. Comments down below. Help me find a new camera, for God's sake. I'll see you all soon. Peace.